The Great Fire of London began modestly enough, with a small spark that would soon ignite a catastrophe. Shortly after midnight on Sunday, September 2nd, 1666, a fire broke out in the bakery of Thomas Fariner, the King's baker, on Pudding Lane near London Bridge. The bakery, filled with flammable materials, was an unfortunate tinderbox waiting to explode. The flames quickly caught hold of the dry timber beams and thatch roofs common in the tightly packed neighborhood. The fire, once started, found ample fuel in the wooden structures that dominated the area. London was a city ripe for disaster. A hot summer had left it tinder dry, and the close proximity of buildings made the spread of fire almost inevitable. The city's infrastructure, with its narrow streets and wooden houses, was a perfect storm for such a calamity. The fire spread with astonishing speed, fueled by a strong easterly wind. The wind carried embers and flames from one building to the next, creating a chain reaction of destruction. Within hours, it had consumed entire streets, the flames leaping from house to house, church to church. The inferno showed no mercy, devouring everything in its path. The narrow, winding streets acted like chimneys, funneling the fire westward. The design of the city itself seemed to conspire against its inhabitants, turning the streets into conduits for the blaze. Panic gripped the city as residents fled their homes, carrying what possessions they could. The chaos was palpable, with people running in all directions, desperate to escape the relentless advance of the flames. Families were torn apart in the confusion, and the streets were filled with the sounds of fear and despair. The Great Fire of London was not just a physical disaster, but an emotional one, leaving scars that would last for generations. Several factors contributed to the fire's rapid spread. The Great Fire of London in 1666 was a catastrophic event that forever changed the city. The city's wooden buildings, coated in flammable pitch, acted as perfect fuel. These structures, densely packed together, created a tinderbox waiting to ignite. The narrow streets and overhanging jetties created a wind tunnel effect. This funneling of air intensified the flames, making them spread even faster through the city. Water supplies were inadequate, and the leather buckets and hand-operated pumps used by the firefighting teams proved woefully insufficient against the inferno. The primitive firefighting methods of the time were no match for that rapidly spreading blaze. The Lord Mayor of London, Sir Thomas Bloodworth, initially downplayed the severity of the fire. His lack of immediate action and underestimation of the fire's potential for destruction contributed to the disaster. His hesitation to order the demolition of buildings to create firebreaks proved disastrous, allowing the flames to spread unchecked. Firebreaks could have halted the fire's progress, but the delay in decision-making sealed the city's fate. By Sunday evening, the fire had become a raging inferno, consuming everything in its path. The once bustling streets of London were now engulfed in flames, leaving destruction and chaos in their wake. The Great Fire of London would go down in history as one of the most devastating events the city had ever faced. The fire raged for 3 relentless days and nights, transforming the once bustling city into a scene of chaos and despair. The thick smoke blotted out the sun, turning day into an endless night. An eerie orange glow illuminated the sky, casting a haunting light over the devastated landscape. The air was thick with the acrid smell of burning wood and the cries of those who had lost everything. St. Paul's Cathedral, a towering symbol of London's prosperity and architectural grandeur, was not spared from the inferno. On Monday, the flames reached the majestic structure, and its lead roof began to melt under the intense heat. The once mighty stone walls, which had stood for centuries, finally crumbled, succumbing to the relentless blaze. The sight of the cathedral burning was a devastating blow to the city's spirit. The heat from the fire was so intense that it created its own weather system. Hurricane-force winds were generated, sucking air into the heart of the conflagration and feeding the flames. The winds howled through the streets, spreading the fire even further and making it nearly impossible for the firefighters to control. The inferno seemed to have a life of its own, growing stronger with each passing hour. By Tuesday, the fire had begun to subside as it reached the less densely populated areas to the west. The flames, which had consumed everything in their path, started to lose their ferocity. The countryside provided a natural barrier, slowing the fire's advance. The once roaring inferno was now a smouldering ruin, leaving behind a trail of destruction and ash. Exhausted firefighters who had been battling the blaze day and night were finally able to gain the upper hand. A change in the wind direction provided a much-needed respite, and the use of gunpowder to create fire breaks proved to be a turning point. By Wednesday, September 5th, the inferno was finally brought under control. The city, though scarred and battered, had survived one of the most devastating fires in its history. The resilience and determination of the firefighters and citizens would be remembered for generations to come. The devastation was unimaginable. The fire had consumed an area over a mile wide and 2 miles long, destroying over 13,000 houses, 87 churches, and countless businesses and warehouses. Over 70,000 people, 2/3 of the city's population, were left homeless. The stench of smoke and rotting food hung heavy in the air. The streets were littered with debris, the charred remnants of buildings and the belongings of those who had lost everything. Food and water were scarce, and the threat of disease loomed large. Section 5. Heroes and Chroniclers. Amidst the chaos and despair, stories of courage and resilience emerged. Ordinary Londoners risked their lives to save others and salvage what they could. Firefighters worked tirelessly, battling exhaustion and despair. Samuel Pepys, the famous diarist, provided a vivid first-hand account of the fire, his words capturing the terror and confusion of those who lived through it. Another notable figure was Sir Christopher Wren, the brilliant architect who would play a pivotal role in rebuilding London. Wren's detailed survey of the devastated city provided the foundation for its reconstruction. The rebuilding of London began almost immediately. King Charles II, eager to restore order and demonstrate his authority, issued a proclamation outlining plans for a new city. However, the scale of the task was immense and the process of reconstruction would take decades. The rebuilding effort presented an opportunity to address some of the shortcomings of the old city. Wider streets and buildings constructed of brick and stone replaced the timber-framed houses that had fueled the fire. New building codes were introduced, mandating the use of fire-resistant materials and imposing stricter regulations on building heights and densities. Sir Christopher Wren's vision for a new London was ambitious and far-reaching. He envisioned a city of grand avenues, spacious squares and elegant buildings, a fitting capital for a resurgent nation. Wren's masterpiece was the new St. Paul's Cathedral, a soaring symbol of hope and resilience rising from the ashes of the old. While Wren's grand vision for a completely redesigned London was never fully realized, his influence on the city's rebuilding was profound. His emphasis on fire safety and his elegant architectural style left an enduring mark on London's cityscape. The Great Fire of London was a tragedy of immense proportions, but it also proved to be a catalyst for change. The rebuilding efforts transformed London, creating a more spacious, fire-resistant and architecturally cohesive city. The disaster also spurred advances in firefighting techniques and urban planning. The medieval city of narrow, winding streets and timber-framed houses was gone, replaced by a more modern metropolis better suited to the demands of a growing city and a burgeoning empire. The Great Fire of London remains a defining moment in the city's history. It is commemorated by the monument, a towering column designed by Wren that stands near the site where the fire began. The event also serves as a reminder of the importance of fire safety and the need for effective urban planning. The fire's legacy can still be seen in the layout of London's streets, the use of brick and stone in its buildings, and the city's enduring spirit of resilience and renewal.